At 6:30, we'll call the Sawyer County Public Works meeting to order. Ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Ron Kinsley,
Here.
Ed Peters,
Here.
Chris Rusk. He's here virtually. Mark Helwig and Brian Bissonette. Absent.
I'm here.
Chris,
Mr. Helwig contacted me. He would not make the meeting tonight. We still have a quorum with one virtual, Mr. Chris Russell and Mr. Peters and I. Three of us make the quorum. Thank you. Next item is pledge allegiance to the flag.
pledge allegiance to the flag.
One nation under God.
Thank you. Number 4, certification compliance open meeting laws.
This meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. We have these little clickers now for when we vote, and the clerk has a question for us, so we can try them out.
All right, so this is a little bit of switch on my part. I've got to share my screen. So give me just 1 second. It'll take a moment to flip us around. There we go. Okay, when I tell you to, I'm going to open up the voting, and you're going to answer the question. A green push of the button is a yes, and a red is a no, and a yellow is an abstain. So the question is, the Wisconsin state beverage is beer, yes or no? Why is my poll not opening? There we go. Okay, vote now, Ron and Ed. Now it should be ready.
Okay.
Okay, Chris, I need to push your button for you. You want me to vote yes or no?
No.
Okay, so the votes are in and we can close the vote. And the results show that Chris is the correct one. The Wisconsin beverage is milk, not beer. So it shows 2 yes and 1 no. So that's how it's going to work when we get ready for the real vote. Okay. And it shows in here when you on my screen that it passed.
Okay.
Okay. So that's how it's going to work.
Thank you. Number 5, meeting agenda. We have to move number 9A down under 10. We can make it 10C.
Okay.
So we need a motion. Yeah, we need a motion.
I'll move to transfer.
I'll second that.
9A to 10C.
And we don't need to use the clickers for that.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Russ to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 6, public comment. Ms. Sommer.
Linda Zilmer, 902 Holly Hill Lane, Birchwood, Edgewater, property owner on County Highway F. I'm speaking to the new item 10C on highway speed limits for ATVs, UTVs. I hope that a speed limit will specifically be set for the section of Highway F that was approved last month that has a vehicle speed of 55 miles per hour. And the recommendation would be maybe to set it at 45 miles per hour because the other stretch that was approved last month, both vehicle and ATV, UTV speeds would be 45. And the recommendation from local police was also to ask the highway department whether they would consider lowering the vehicle speed limit from 55 to 45. That way it's a consistent, it's 45 before the little village of Edgewater, that area drops to 25, and then it could go back to 45. Right now you've got 3 speed limits. And then the second item is, I guess I would ask for more work on the draft ATV UTV ordinance to incorporate the recently adopted LCO amended ordinance, as well as to consider what individual towns have and try and see if there's some consistency. for the ease of compliance and enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything for public comment? Mr. Slender? Okay, thank you. Number 7, consider approval of the minutes of the previous meeting of October 12th.
A motion to approve that.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Russ, second by Mr. Peters to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Vote on, I only do this for, I plan on using it for the votes that actually make,
Okay. Okay.
For action items?
Yes.
so yes, that's a good way to put it.
Okay,
So-
thank you. Thanks for clarification. Number 8, maintenance department. Derek's grandmother passed away and he told us he wouldn't be able to make the meeting. He did provide us with a report. And anybody have any questions on the report? Excuse me, maintenance. Tim, I'm sorry. Tim provided us with a report. He's not here tonight either, obviously. So we'll make a note that he's supplied us with a report.
I'm good.
Thank you. Airport, Derek's grandmother passed away. He did provide us with a report also. Andy, anything you want to add out there?
No, we should be ready for the snow to fly. We've gone over all that, plowing and coverage, as well as some advanced applications for ice melt. So when we have larger planes, we do have the ability to put the chemical down. That's been primarily the conversation the last month.
Thank you. We'll move on to number 10, Highway Commissioners Report.
Does anyone have any, well, first thing, are we gonna do the ordinance update first, 10A?
We can, yeah.
Just received notification from Andy today that legal has reviewed. Andy did send it to me. Do you want to talk on that, Andy, or,
Yeah, I'll put it up on the
okay,
screen and
Chairman, just say that I was invited by the commissioner to answer any questions that the board may have regarding the tribes ATV ordinance. So that's needed.
Thank you.
so while Andy's getting that up there, basically what legal said is that he tightened up the introductory section, noted several problems with some of the clauses related to age restrictions. And basically just keep in mind strict conformity with Wisconsin Stats 2333. Any county ordinance can't be more strict. Cannot be regulated in a manner more restrictive than the state law. So 2333.
yeah, I just throw it up on the screen here. Bigger, but yeah, what Gary just summarized is pretty much consistent. There wasn't a lot of significant changes, kind of some making sure the correct statutes are referenced, and I guess I would turn a lot of this just lawyer speak so that it's enforceable.
Some of the things that I think are important, since I was provided with a copy of the LCO ordinance a couple days ago. I think it's important to note the hours of operation, which it states hours of operation for recreation use of ATV to be on the Lac reservation. So then, and so we have county roads that are within the reservation, 6 a.m. until 11 p.m. And help me out, Jim, I believe there was something about a 35 mile an hour speed limit.
The tribe's position regarding any roads that come into the jurisdiction of the tribe is the person is consenting to the jurisdiction of the tribal code. And so I know that there's some legal interpretations that people may want to fall under in terms of the right of ways. But until the right of way has been established, that it proves that there's either some kind of subordination of the tribal jurisdiction. The sunrise, sundown provision is put in place to like regulate or kind of, I don't know the proper word. Some of the trails are go through communities, and the groups that are coming through there are like 5 or more, and it's just trying to allow for the communities to, I don't know, sleep at night, and so that's kind of the idea with that. As to roads, once they go off the tribe's jurisdiction, the tribe has no opinion as to how the county or townships may implement or adopt. They just ask that if there are people who come onto the reservation, that they obey the laws as they're presented. We met with Bass Lake. We're going to be meeting with town of Hayward, and Kathy LaRue, was she here? I'm supposed to come have a conversation with you because
Please do.
and they because there's a discussion about trail maintenance, and one of the things that was brought to us by Bass Lake was the opening and closing of trails, and the tribe doesn't have a problem with non-travel people coming and asking for trail consideration. There is no statutory restriction. You want to come on the agenda and ask for it. The flip side of that is they'll consider that, but there's also, if they get complaints, they may regulate it, trying to cut down the noise volume. Other than that, I mean, there's an enforcement mechanism that's in place. Did that answer your question there, Mr. Garrett?
Well, I'm looking at, I did find it, it's 35 miles an hour.
Yeah, that was the question. So when we talk about making it high, faster than 35, is that a possible? Because it's one of the concerns that the tribe has is that 35 on K and E, and it blocks up the traffic. And so we didn't want to do anything that didn't comport with state law. So if if the speed can be modified, I think the council would consider it. I mean, we still got safety regulations, helmets, no biking bans. I mean, the simple things that we do to try to keep our community safe and clean.
That would be something we want to consider and see when we're talking about speed limits. And then I had another question, Jim. Am I interpreting this correctly? That there is a registration.
Yeah, that's kind of there's a intent of the registration, but council is kind of trying to think through that because we're not going to restrict non-travel people from coming onto posted routes. But if they want to go on the routes that are not posted, that would be open under tribal jurisdiction, then there's a registration.
So an example would be we have a section of County Road double N opened up. Double N from Gurnall Lake Road all the way down to N is open, I believe.
That's posted.
Okay, now that's within reservation boundaries. Would that require a permit? Okay.
But if they wanted to take a left on double N and go out,
So what's the purpose of having that road open all the way to N? I mean, I get it. We need it to get to Chief Lake, but beyond there, what's the purpose?
and a trail.
And if you take a left on N and then it turns into CC and it goes down to Conger Road and then you get on Trail 9.
So CC and those are open as trails too.
Correct.
That's a question that the tribe has. They don't remember any kind of request for that being.
Mr. Russ, can you hear that?
Yep. Yes.
Thank you.
When did that open up? You know?
That was a while ago. That was before we were going through the process of asking the tribe. And that was the same with Gurnall Lake Road, but the Gurnall Lake Road was actually a request from someone on the tribal council or in like one of the departments. When the whole trail system was being developed, the big trail system that comes up to the casino, that was a request that we received. So that's different. That's a town issue.
What township is that for CC through Congo Road?
Scootery, I believe.
Cooteray, but I believe that half of Gurnall Lake, the western half, is back. That's
Bass Lake and
Hayward.
Town of Hayward, yeah. But really, the only section that needs to be open there is Gurnall Lake to the trail that cuts north to Indian Lake. And then eastbound all the way to Chief Lake, I guess.
Where does Tuscovia come in? Because that was a talking point with Bass Lake.
So that was way back 20 years ago when we started all this whole trail system for the tribe, and we connected Gurnall Lake to Indian Lake and Indian Lake to Green Lake to get it onto the trail so ATVs could make their way from Tuscovia all the way up to the Hayward, basically, at that point, because they had no legal way to do it. So that was when myself and, geez, there was a few of us. I know Donnie was there, Donnie Rotek. We used to meet at the casino pretty regularly back then with Brian over at Power Sports. He was big in it. But that was when we got that piece open between Indian Lake and Gurnall Lake Road. But now it's so rocky that nobody wants to use it anymore. And I'm actually working with conservation right now because they have a massive pile of gravel that they're going to start to spread through there, but they have to get a culvert down along the creek right at the beginning. So things are moving on that.
Thank you.
I guess it's the committee's decision. What do you want to? Do you want to look at this and incorporate some of this, or?
I think we should. I mean, they took time to put stuff together and we want to try to have it so it satisfies everybody the best we can. Obviously, we're not going to satisfy everybody, but we want to try.
And to what extent? I mean, because the hours of operation, we struck that last month. And is that something?
Well, if that's something that the tribe wants, it should be listed in there, and when they're on county roads on the reservation, that these are the hours.
Well, so, right, I mean, that's the position of the tribe. We're gonna have to revisit the establishment of the routes, because there's a question of the right of ways and the jurisdictional part. One of the concerns that the tribe has is that if there are people who have, been using these trails and, the ground use these trails and all that, the tribe has an inherent responsibility for the safety and, the conduct of the people that come into the reservation knowledge. Wisconsin does, just as town of Hayward does, city of Hayward, Sawyer County. And so if they're going to come on reservation, then they're consenting for the jurisdiction. The penalty sequence for the code is if someone is in violation of the code, and I think we've enumerated most of them, they would get a citation amount that I think is consistent with 2333. And if they're off the trail, if they're in an area that's not marked as a trail, then they would either be asked to go back on the trail, or their vehicle would be confiscated and they'd be escorted to the boundary line and then released. And then if there's like a dangerous conduct, like if they're drinking, or if they were excessive speeds, or they were in danger of hurting people who were not used to ATVs, then their vehicle could be impounded until they such time as they appear to trial before to confront the judge, pay the fine, and how to get the vehicle released. So I know that there's people that get a little bit perturbed with the idea that tribal courts have jurisdiction and tribes have jurisdiction on reservation. So if someone were to get a citation, they could go to court and ask for it to be transferred to Sawyer County. And there's been discussions with Judge Yackel about what that procedure would be, so that they're whatever their infringement of what they feel is their constitutional rights would be respected by having it adjudicated in Sawyer County. But it's a civil violation, not a criminal. So the jurisdictional question really isn't as complicated as people.
Yes,
Just kind of a general question for the discussion we're having, just so I understand to work on this. So incorporating the tribal ordinance into the county ordinance, are we talking about making those provisions applicable to all the county? Or putting some language here that's specific to roads on the reservation?
that's what I was wondering too. How do we do that? I mean, it's Sawyer County ordinance. I respect what the tribe is doing. But do we put that in the Sawyer County ordinance or do we not? I don't know. I guess that's what I'm thinking about.
Well,
I think,
the tribe is recognizing that there's a trail that's been established. And so we got to clear up the double N and C and our double C and the N trail so that we got clear legal authority that's been established. But for like K and E and did you guys get, is there a trail on Round Lake? On Lake School Road?
So,
And then does it go up K, like go by the casino? No, is that a trail? So wherever there's an established trail, the tribe is respecting during daylight hours that, you know, a non-tribal person can come on those lines, on those trails. If they want to go onto roads that are not established by the county, or not established, you know, through whatever the process that's going to be between the township, the county, and the tribe, then they should get a permit, and that would alleviate that concern. So if you're going to incorporate your Sawyer County ordinance, you could have it in place, and then just have a section in there that this ordinance, you know, respects the jurisdictional boundaries established by the tribe.
Would you plan to post your like the hours of operation on a sign?
So that's why I want to talk with Mr. LaRue about posting, because the tribe has had an intention, and it's probably my fault because I got other things I gotta do, but they're trying to get a partnership established with the trail lines because I know that they have some concerns. There's gonna be some concerns about the hours of operation, and we want to have a discussion to see if there's some kind of mutual solution. But I think posting of the signs is one of the things that may come out of that discussion. So if it's on reservation, the tribe will do its best to make sure that the trails are marked and that areas that are not open for ATV are also clearly marked so that someone doesn't get inadvertently. And we're not going to have teams of trolls out there trying to harass people for ATV use. We're just trying to ensure that the use of enjoyment is done in an area that has minimal impact on the community, because there's a lot of tribal members, a lot of citizens that live on the reservation that are not fans of the ATV traffic that's happening. So we're trying to balance those needs because we have some tribal members that are excited about the opportunity.
Does Sawyer County have like a trail ambassador patrol or program? Or you have like you know what I'm talking about?
No, I do know what
Okay.
you're talking about. Nobody has signed up for that, to my knowledge.
Okay. Then, well, just for vernacular, when we have the discussion, I think this is kind of important because we start to mix up. The ordinance is routes. Road right of ways. Those are routes, trails are off the road. So just wondering, I think there's a little bit of both. Probably on the reservation, there's
I just thought there was roads and trails.
routes, yeah,
Road.
routes connect to trails. Routes are on right of ways,
we're only addressing on-road
routes.
routes right now. I guess my question, Jim, would be, I had sent this over for comment and I didn't hear anything back, but in the administration portion, all route requests within the Fruita Ray Reservation shall be provided to the Clear Lake Tribal Council for their review and input prior to approval. Was that received, or is that something
Is that in there?
that's in ours?
Yours?
In Sawyer County's?
So that's what the Silver is saying. So I don't know if we actually had that specifically codified. It's understood that if you're going to do something on a reservation and you can't find something, you're supposed to go talk to the tribal council. So I guess maybe I can bring that back to council review and see if they want that. It's just that.
Because you're basically, that's what this is saying. If we get a route request and, I don't know, let's pick a section or road, say it's on double C within the reservation boundaries. We would get, it would come in the form of a twice a year request to Public Works Committee, come to the Highway Commissioner. And that would be, from there, it would go, if it was within the boundaries, it would go to the recruiter area reservation, the tribal council. And it also goes to whatever town it's in. So that we have a dual approval process outside of reservation. Within reservation, it would be a triple.
Okay.
So it'd be three people.
That's an interesting, because what happens if one or two disagree with
It's
it?
dead.
Interesting.
It's dead. And that's what's happened with the dual approval
So
is.
this question has been brought to the council, and the council is not comfortable with having just, a once a year shot at looking at the road route approvals. And so the council didn't want to put such, I guess, stringent regulations. And so if because I live over in Blackberry, and if I wanted to open up Dreamcatcher and double in, so I could get on my ATV and go somewhere. What I would do is I'd go to council and say, hey, on the agenda, this is what I'm doing. This is what the request is, the purpose for it, but the council can hear that. And then my brother gets on there and he gets a log machine and us the people are like, wait a minute, all right, one Schlender's enough, you want two Schlenders, and they go back on the next week and say, okay, we got that open, but now this is what's happening. The council wants to have that flexibility to deal with that instead of waiting next year to go through this whole process. And so
You always have that ability at any time to address that. This is for route requests.
right, route request, but that's still, we didn't want to separate that because the council wants the ability. So here's the main thing that has caught council's attention is the path that's going to Burnell Lake. And my instruction is to have a conversation to see if there's another way to route that, because through that community is like, it's extremely popular. There's multiple groups of multiple vehicles coming through, basically not at all hours, but mainly through from like 7 o'clock to like 11 o'clock. And so no one's sleeping, everyone's up, everyone's, freaking out when they got these machines going by, and if they're driving, it's not really posted, they're turning down into some people's yards and coming through, and it just makes people nervous, right? So the council established it so that could be reviewed. Now, if it gets regulated or slowed down and someone wants to come back and revisit it, they want to wait a year, right? They want to get another vehicle. They want to be responsive to what the needs of the communities are. And so if, say, Muskogee gets fixed, we really are encouraging people to use the trail portion rather than the road portion, right? Because you didn't buy a UTV to go run errands. You want to take it in the places that are, enticing. So if it changes so that we only have one certain way to get in there, the council wants to be responsive, because you don't need people getting harassed with tickets because they're going some path, but they want to get to that path. They want to develop a partnership to find out if these paths can be brought together that are conducive to what they're doing, while also respecting the environment. People treating these.
And it's twice a year.
For you guys.
Twice a year.
There's a Kathy has a comment. Go ahead.
Let me just clarify that though, Mr. Schlender, we're talking about this twice a year route request is only on county roads. So anything else, your other roads within the reservation, we can still modify those, anytime.
Whatever the county wants to do.
Once we're on a county road, that's.
We can do that. If you want to work with the tribe will discuss basically anything that's coming up, yes or no. The downside is you're also dealing with a yes or no on a route too, so.
Mr. Slender, here's another question that it hasn't happened, but there's been talk of it. And I'm not that familiar with all the roads on the reservation. Is there any roads that's not open to ATV, UTV? As in, the potential is there in the future to open all roads. It hasn't happened, but there is discussion about it periodically.
There's a couple of concerns that the tribe has. One is, the tribe's doing its best to respond to this kind of phenomenon, right? It's,
Yeah.
10 years ago, we weren't talking about ATVs in a mass kind of setting. We have areas that are considered sacred by certain communities. We don't want to mark them because that would invite people to come and pay their respects, so to speak. The other thing that we're also concerned with is logging roads, and logging roads are in place for cuts, and some of them are non-tribal citizens that have land within the reservation boundaries. Some of them are BIA, some of them are allotted, some of them are whatever, right? But when the cuts are done, those paths are excellent ATV paths for various reasons, but they're not highly patrolled, right? They're not. It's not something that our wardens or our police officers would look to check to make sure if someone got hurt, right? Because you're going over a path that may or may not be out there, something happens, and there's no clear area of rescue. So the logging roads are considered off limits. If that's a route that, a private citizen or someone wants to bring up to councils, if it's within the councils, then they would consider it, but there would have to be a discussion about, maintenance and responsibilities and whatnot. They would like to, there's not a clear consensus on paths through communities, because roads obviously are inviting to ATV uses, UTV uses, and that's for vehicles. And so we got some communities that are not used to it, and we'd like to not have a bunch of vehicles come through there, because you're inviting eventually a vehicle on UTV incident, which would work out well for the UTV. The third part is, of course, people trying to get from one community to another, and not everyone is out to just raise hell. They're driving, they see something, they go down this road, and then they're lost. And we don't want to harass someone. We want to get them out of there. So we're just trying to be least restrictive while protecting the environment, the families. And so what the council would like to do, and I say this out of respect with any chance that I'd like to partner with the Trail Alliance to see if we can't figure out a way to map these paths out there so that it makes sense for people to come through there. I mean, LCO is, if you look on the map, we're pretty close to the center of things, right? There's a lot of things that come through and connect from the north to the south, east to the west, that you end up coming through some part of the reservation. And so the tribe doesn't want to be an obstacle to that, but we also want those boundaries to be respected, because sometimes respect hasn't always been the high point of the relationship between the county and the tribe, the townships and the tribe, and community members of the tribe. And so the tribe's kind of sensitive to that. And so we're trying to make sure that we put a gesture going forward, but also we're not just going to capitulate either. So that was about 2,000 more words than you're asking for, Mr. Kingsley, but that's the risk you take when you ask me a question.
Thank you, Mr. Slender. Mr. Peters, got a question.
I do have a question. Isn't there a model for not having access to logging roads? State forests, national forests, all have areas that are not open to motorized traffic. In my knowledge, and those are either marked or somewhat significantly blocked, bermed and so forth, that could be an avenue to or a model for how to handle logging roads within the reservation.
I know that some of the parcels that have been logged are considered private property, And they may or may not have marked them, so they may have marked what would be an understood egress or path, but a logging trail would be something that would be developed for a specific purpose, and they may not have marked it as no trespassing. But I don't know, I'm not that versed in enforcement, I guess.
Okay, a lot of good discussion. Thank you. Kathy, you got anything else you want to add?
No, I'm just looking forward to meeting
Okay, that's fine.
No one's ever
a
told
lot of
me.
ideas.
No one's ever said that to me before.
So what do you want to do here?
Well,
I'm thinking,
yeah, like, I think Gary and I could use a little direction from the committee. Maybe just first on the attorney's comments. Kind of what I summarized is legalese and like Gary said, there's some recommendation or advisement that the operator age that we have in our current ordinance does not match with what the state law is, because there are exceptions to being able to operate it under 12 years old and under 16, primarily if you're with a parent or guardian or another designated individual, or if you're operating for agricultural use. So they could be on the roads operating legally. So I think we just need to adjust that language to
Okay.
meet the state. So if you're okay with those directions. The other things, like Gary mentioned at the last meeting, 2 changes that were made was one, adding the second review time for requests to include, we still have the second
Yeah.
Wednesday in July, or is it?
Kathy LaRue contacted me regarding this, and I don't have a problem. That February renewal date and then that other, those were just arbitrary dates. Kathy asked if that could be, the renewal date could be moved to April of every year at the April Public Works, because that gets in the real bid. You know, they're not only the ATV, UTV, they're a snowmobile alliance too. So she's stretched pretty thin, and I don't know what's kind of.
Yeah, we'd like to clear our plate of.
Yeah.
Is it 1 day or 2?
What's it?
1 day? April is the only day?
No,
I thought
it would be
renewal.
2 dates, but the renewals would be in April, and then we'd have like an April and August for route requests, new route requests.
that's, I don't have a problem with that. Do you have a problem?
I have no problem with that. I'll motion to approve that.
All right. Yeah, why don't you make that a motion so we can.
Okay, I'll second
Okay.
changing the date.
Motion by Mr. Rock, second by Mr. Peters to make the dates April and August.
April 31st.
No,
Oh,
April
April committee meeting.
committee meeting date. Any discussion? Are you okay with that? Kathy?
Oh, I really want to go April 31st.
Well, I still prefer quarterly.
Yeah.
I need to throw that out there. I still prefer quarterly.
So-
And Gary and I beat that horse to death.
So we have the motion. There's no further discussion. All in favor of the motion? You want us to push these?
I can add it, and if you'd like to, you can. Gentlemen, you can go ahead and vote, and then I'll ask Chris in just a second. And Ron's is didn't record. Chris, how would you like to vote?
Aye,
Got it. Okay,
yay.
got it.
Then
Recording.
Yeah.
the other change last month was removing the hours of operation.
And that's fine. I mean, I thought it was fine.
And then Mr. Slender's comments, I mean, we can work on some language. I think he said something in there about putting some language in ours that acknowledges the LCO ordinance. You know, I don't have any language off the top of my head, but
I think my opinion is if the county's not going with any type of restriction regarding time and the tribe is, that definitely needs to get noted everywhere where everybody can see it. Because the majority of these people are staying at the casino, and if you ride south, you're illegal after dark, and if you ride north, you're good. So that needs to be put everywhere.
Well, it should be incorporated somewhere at the end of the ordinance or something that these something relates to the tribe.
Right. I mean, I get it that the tribe will more than likely put a sign right there at the casino for people, but
I think now let's try.
Yeah, I mean, we can incorporate these things into the ordinance, but the reality is people coming to the county to ride aren't looking up our ordinance.
right, yeah, that's true.
At the website or at the
Signage,
trail lines maps to the,
signage.
so we have to make sure we communicate this to those people that are actually communicating to the riders.
Can I?
Yeah.
Can I just ask one thing?
Yes, go ahead.
And I don't mean any disrespect, but isn't this almost like I have all these other townships that have different ordinances as well, but you're not incorporating all of them into the county road ordinance, and so I'm wondering why we are incorporating the LCO ordinance into the county ordinance.
I mean, we can incorporate your guys into our ordinance.
If I'm not wrong, didn't the tribe meet with the town of Hayward this evening?
Bass Lake.
Bass Lake,
Bass Lake?
Hayward next.
So Bass Lake has an ordinance that's similar to the tribe. There's no objection to hours of operation. So
Ms. Silver.
Thank you. Ms. LaRue has said that she has all the town ordinances, and I guess for all the months that have passed, and it's probably not gonna be approved tonight. For next month, can there be just like a spreadsheet of what the different towns have under their ordinances? Because I believe a lot of them do have hours of operation, and if it's legal under state statutes to incorporate that, not just for the tribe, but across the county, because I know that's a complaint that comes to the Edgewater Town Board all the time, that people are objecting to not only the loud ATV, UTV noise, but then people are also cranking up radios. So safety, if the towns want it and the tribe want it, can the county incorporate an hour?
Well, Ms. LaRue brought up a good point, and that's, she's absolutely correct. We're not putting the townships in there. Why are we putting the tribes in there? No? I just want to bring it to people's attention that the rules are somewhat different. Can you provide what all the townships and everybody has? Is
Well,
that something?
I certainly don't have time to put together a spreadsheet like Ms. Zollner wants. I'm a volunteer and I work a full-time job. I can tell you that they are different, but it is
Yeah.
up to each township when you're entering that township to post appropriate signage at the township entrances to let them know of any, unusual rules that people have to follow. And that's one thing that a lot of the townships also need to work on, because I live here and I don't even know when I'm traveling from one township into another, much less know what the
Yeah.
laws are off the top of my head. And you can't expect a visitor to know all that right off the top of their head either. Nobody that comes here from like Minnesota to ride, and they don't even know the names of our townships. They just come here and ride. And they're not going to call each township. Some of them are only open 1 or 2 days a week to try to get a copy of their ordinance.
You're right. Just a thought, that's all.
I mean, we try to keep people informed. That's my main goal in meeting with Mr. Schlender, is so that I can talk to him about the way, what their ordinance is, so that I can start getting the word out and informing our ATV crowd what's going on, because there's a lot of confusion right now.
Yes,
Tim Davison. So let me understand this, Mr. Schlender. So dawn to dusk. So you're staying at the casino and you get there at 4 o'clock today, you cannot go down south.
yes, I don't know what, is there a path from the casino?
Major, it's the major path.
Okay,
No, it's a trail.
well, there's a trail there.
Yeah.
It's
So,
actually, Mr. Davison, 6 a.m. until 11 p.m. So it's,
well, he was saying dawn to
No,
dusk.
he
The
doesn't.
tribe is behind the dust, it's within the reservation boundary, so. I don't know if the boundary goes out to the casino.
It says
It says, it says 6 a.m. to 11 p.m.
yeah, this is on the reservation. It says, I believe the reservation is 6 a.m. to 11 p.m.
That's better. I just wanted to clarify, because if I was unloaded at 4 o'clock and I could not go south, I would, the only way and it's harming multiple businesses within the reservation.
What do you think, Gary?
I don't think too much.
Andy?
I can work with Andy on this.
We will, we can
I-
massage this. We can, just as we can put something in here to acknowledge the tribes ordinance, we can put an acknowledgement that our ordinance covers county roads. And that towns will have their own ordinances for their own roads.
Yeah, that would be good, I guess.
It's no different than road bans. I mean, each everyone has their own thing they can do. That's
Just some
how
kind of,
unique we are in Wisconsin.
And
We
this
don't
is,
have jurisdiction over towns and we're,
is there just a small difference? This may be Mr. Slender question or our legal counsel, but a county road through a township, we have sole jurisdiction over the county road and what happens on it. I mean, the town can't put any restrictions on our
no,
county roads through a township.
no.
I think they can actually open a road if the speed limit is under
It's
35
under
miles an hour. They can
Okay.
open it without the highway department's permission.
Correct.
Okay.
Or the state.
Oh, that's,
It's the state.
okay, yeah, that's part of the 10-23-33 subchapter 10 that the attorney referenced. And on the reservation though, does the tribe have,
Tribe has the ability, so think about it this way. Think that the county owns the road, where you're on, which means that the property exists, but for the fact that there's permission for that conduct to happen on someone's property. So it's like an easement. And so, because property is the number one thing in this country, right? If you have a house, your house is your domain and you have every right to regulate it within there as long as it doesn't violate, federal or state law. So if you have someone that comes through your area, what you're doing is you're giving them the right of way to proceed through. So if there's a presumption that these roads have a right of way, then you need to establish that with the tribe to show that the right of way that was granted by the tribe to the county or to the state or whatever prescribes that specific conduct. And so the county highways that come through there, they may have ease of access, which then contemplates ATVs, right? Because ATVs weren't around when these right-of-ways were being contemplated until 1940 or 1930. If it says for automobile use, well, then the right-of-way doesn't exist because now it's prescribed against, it's a prescribed conduct against the right-of-ways. It's like the same thing if you're building a railroad, right? If you have a railroad track that comes through someone's property, you can only use it for that railroad. That's why a railroad company will sue you forever if you try to come across there. I mean, we had that problem with the snowmobile trail coming up there because there's a specific prescribed purpose for why that coming in there, because otherwise that property doesn't belong to you and you don't have a right to come on there unless you got permission. So the right of way gives permission for specific use. So until there's something that establishes that there's something in there that somehow diminishes the tribe's authority, then the tribe's authority is in place because the county doesn't have the authority to tell the tribe what to do. The only one that really has any authority is probably the federal government. That's by virtue of the treaties. And that's why we have this whole thing about retrocession. We got this thing about speeding tickets on reservation. And so what's been happening is, as the tribe has been able to better defend the boundaries that it has, so Mr. Gerhard made a comment, well, we opened this up before we started this process of negotiating. This kind of thing has been happening on the reservation for decades. I mean, if you go through Boulevard, there was the recent tax case that came through here. So the 54 treaty allocated a specific area of land that was supposed to belong to those Ojibways that were being displaced from like Rice Lake and Rusk County and all of that. And they were told we were going to live here and no one was going to interfere with you. Well, then there was other laws that came in place, and now you see the current impact of what that interference has done. And so you've got these lake resorts, you've got these properties that all exist within the reservation boundary. Well, how did they get there? They're going to say, well, we bought it from somebody, we have it, it's been in our family for generations. So when the tribe starts to reassert and make sure that there's no more further denigration of their authority, that's what comes into play there. So there's this common misconception that because there's a county sign on there, that somehow the county has this authority. county doesn't have any more authority than the townships do. They're supposed to actually cooperate with the tribe, because the tribe has a federally recognized authority. Now, the feds will come in there and tell us something different, but we're not gonna argue with the United States Marine Corps as they come in and assert their sovereign rights. But law enforcement comes on there only because there's a federal grant of authority that under public law 280 that gives them the authority to come on and exercise, state law and whatever else. That's a criminal thing. And there's cases that speak to this, but we have citizens that have their specific interpretation of the United States Constitution that somehow makes them superior to the tribe's right. So if you think that, I'm sure that there's people in here who absolutely grew up thinking that county highway belongs to the county. That's why they call it the county highway. But that road is on the right of way through someone else's property for the purposes of allowing them to take their vehicles through there. And then the maintenance and things that come in between there, that's what comes in afterwards. So now people can disagree with me. And if you guys want to come on reservation, you're more than welcome, because we don't put any boundaries on that, right? Even though back in the 30s, there used to be a boundary that prohibited Indians from leaving the reservation and they couldn't go into Hayward, right? So if you come on reservation, you're agreeing to the jurisdiction. Just like if you go into Minnesota, you're not going to go into Minnesota and say, you know what, I'm from Wisconsin. Your Minnesota laws don't apply. If you're going to come on reservation, please come on there. But just, you're coming into someone else's property, respect the laws that they have in place.
Maybe an asterisk at the bottom saying towns and reservations may have different rules.
Okay,
And that way it identifies them. Because we have to do something for them, and I don't know what else to do, but that's a start anyway. And things can always get changed, but we have to have a starting point. So we'll have it on the agenda for next month. I'd like to get it approved so that we have a starting point, and down in the future, we can always change things if we feel they need to be changed, but let's get something so we got something to move forward with. Okay?
got it.
All right. Commissioners report.
Okay.
Thank you for all the discussion.
Any questions on the commissioner's report? Just a couple.
I'm good.
One update, on the paragraph talking about design consultants. We did have those interviews on Thursday, November 3rd. Chairman Kinsley was a part of the selection group. We had myself and the patrol superintendent, Brad Visey. We interviewed, we had 4 firms invited, one canceled, interviewed Core Air, Short Elliott Hendrickson. And we used a ranking system provided by DOT, looked at a lot of stuff, availability, past load performance, just a whole ranking sheet. So we have a numerical value attached to these interviews, and we awarded the roadway project, which is County Road E. We awarded that to, or we ranked Short Elliott Hendrickson #1 firm, with Ayers #2 and Core #3. And then for the 2 bridge deck replacements, we ranked Ayers Associates #1, SC or Short Elliott Hendrickson #2, and Core #3. So I submitted those all to DOT. They're going to be setting up meetings soon where we'll iron out the details on that. Hopefully get going on the design of those projects. So.
Good job.
Yeah.
Oh, now, okay, yeah, we do. And then I do have 2 more projects that we were awarded, and that's a bridge deck overlay on, a bridge deck replacement on Double C in Blueberry Bay, and the 1 mile of urban on County Road B. Highway B right through the city. But I just was speaking with Andy today. We have opportunity. There's some more solicitations out there for more projects. My question was, do you guys want me to keep trying for these grants? I've been pretty successful as of late. And they're basically they're 80-20 cost shares. I personally think it's a great deal if you could get $1 worth of work for 20 cents. But the county's got to come up with the cost shares. You think, oh, that isn't much. Well, that project on County Road E is a $3 million project. So we have to come up with 20% of that. So is this something that the Public Works Committee wants me in my last 39 days now to proceed doing this? Because I can put together I've got a lot of experience doing it, so it really isn't that hard for me to do.
Yes.
So, I mean, let's jump in here before anybody gets any thoughts. Like the two projects you just spoke about, we're not part of our capital improvement plan. So we're gonna have to come up with the 20% for those. So as soon as he gets the numbers, and it's gonna, like, we need the money next year. Gary's talked
Right.
about next year probably be a design year, just getting them onboarded, and construction down the road.
Yeah.
And then these additional, I mean, these are coming, are these the new grants still bill money?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, this is out of the bill bipartisan
Yeah,
infrastructure.
it is, Bill.
That's kind of like once, I don't say once in a lifetime, but once in a couple decades funding program.
Yeah.
There's not many programs where you're gonna get 80% funding anymore. And definitely, I mean, if you give Gary a soapbox and he can jump on top of it and tell you that we've probably been falling behind on our road maintenance over the years, what we can afford to do. So this would be a chance to catch up on it. And I mean, I tell him to go ahead, and if he gets awarded, we can
Evaluate at that time.
evaluate at that time.
And that's with his experience, I think we should apply for everyone that's out there.
Mhm.
And then if we get accepted, we can always discuss it then.
Yeah. I just
I agree.
some kind of bad news. I wanted to, Ron, you're familiar with, and you might be too, at the bridge deck on County Road G at the Wanigan. And that's one I really would like to put in, but unfortunately, the sufficiency numbers, all our bridges are inspected biannually, so they were inspected this August. That all that data is entered into the state system, and then generate the sufficiency number, and then they roll it out. So these programs I'm talking about this next cycle, they've got a March 24th deadline. So they probably won't release this report till January or February. And I'll probably be sipping a Mai Tai somewhere or something, I don't know. But I'm not gonna be working for Sawyer County, so that's where we're at with that. I mean, the bridge, I think it's important that someone does try and get that bridge deck in there. There seems to be a abundance of money for bridge assistance. I don't know of a single project that was turned down on bridges. Roadways are a different story.
What's the other bridge we have that weight limit on? That the loggers always want to cross?
They removed that weight limit.
Oh, they did?
That's on over Chief River on County B. The DOT had a very conservative rating system, how they were doing their analysis on it. And between the Forest Service and logging industry, they asked the DOT to come back to the table and look at it and maybe go with more of a middle of the road analysis, which they did. And as a result, we had 2 bridges in our county we were able to remove or increase the posting. We were able to remove that. And then Town of Winter had Lake Winter Road. They were able to up the number a little bit. So that's why nothing good has happened to that bridge. It's no better than it was. But the sufficiency number is too high for replacement. It would fall within the rehab numbers, but there's no sense rehabbing it because the problem is slope failure and the piling cracking at ground level. So you're not rehabbing that.
So can the weight limit of 98,000 go across them?
Yeah.
If we're really fast though.
Most logger trucks are.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Speed limits.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say, is there any more questions on the commission's report? But it sounds like we'll just move forward to the speed limits, ATV and UTV. Now, last month we approved section on Highway F, but we didn't put a speed limit on it, so we should revisit that.
I thought that they said it was 45 through all there.
No, when you leave Edge, it goes to it's 45 south of Edgewater. When you get into Edgewater, it's 35, I think. 25? I don't think it's 25. I think it's 35. You think it's 25? I don't know. Let's say whatever it is, doesn't matter. 25. But when you go north of there, it goes to 55.
Oh, okay, up to the church there on Summit,
Yep, Chapel Road.
Apple Road, yep. Does it stay 55 all the way up through those corners?
Yep. Stays 55 all the way up to intersection 2770.
Yeah, the recommended speed.
So what do you think we should do with that?
Of the speed limits? I don't know, 45, 35, I don't know.
To where, Chapel?
Yes,
I guess that would work, 45.
And when they go through Edgewater, they have to go to posted speed,
right.
which is either 25 or 35, whatever it is.
Mr. Peters?
Well, I think having everybody go at the same speed is probably the best for UTVs and the rest of the traffic.
I would ask the Alliance what they think is a reasonable speed too, because I don't know anything about this. I don't have a UTV. I don't know. Good speed, what isn't good speed.
I would do 45 through there, but it would be ideal to have all the traffic be 45 through there. I honestly don't know how you can drive 55 through that section.
You can actually raise it past 35 for ATV and UTVs. Speed limit.
Oh, yeah.
They can operate 55, they can operate at the speed limit.
Wow.
That's how it is with the sign of anything. But you can drive 55 miles an hour north of Edgewater. I do it all the time.
I'm good with 45 to Chapel.
I'm not on that road enough to say I'll go along with 45.
Kathy, what do you think? 45, all right?
I think that's acceptable.
Okay.
Are you leaving the speed limit at 55 then?
Yeah, we wouldn't have any warnings.
We wouldn't change that.
So you would change, you would need to know for signage, if you're gonna leave the speed limit, we have to put an additional sign up.
Right, we won't be changing the speed limit there. There's no real warrants to lower it.
Okay, so we need to put up a 45 mile an hour.
The reason that other section was lowered to 45 was because of pedestrian travel. That petition went around and you don't have that pedestrian travel north that when you start going up towards Chapel, people aren't walking around the road.
No.
So where would it be going at what point? Do I put it in the notes here? Or does it? Where
Well,
would it change?
the routes that we approved last month would be 45 miles an hour.
45 miles an hour from north of
Badger
Edgewater to Chapel Road.
Correct, Badger Bay to Chapel Road,
From Badger Bay to Chapel. Thank you.
right? That would have, yeah.
We need a motion for that, we probably should. So Mr. Russ made the motion,
Yep.
Mr. Peters seconded.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion,
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. How'd that work out, Lynn?
That worked just fine.
Well, I'm gonna confuse things. We haven't done this on some of our other routes.
Yeah, I know. We're getting better at it though.
Well, what are we gonna do on our other routes?
Probably extend his retirement date, right? I
Did you-
that up again.
That ship has sailed already, Jim.
Gary,
139 days.
and- did you add the 3 new routes to this new ordinance list?
No. I haven't.
Okay,
I might have, yeah, I think I did back at work, but not on the. Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I know I put it on my master list. That's something I was lax at before, but I got, I'm kidding, not whether I had it. Some getting towards it. I made sure as soon as the meeting was over, I had it on.
All right,
Okay.
have anything else for your highway commissioner?
I'm good.
We'll move on to number 11, courtroom remodel update.
I think everybody has the monthly update from Myron. Things are moving along pretty good right now, getting it enclosed for the winter. I know it's a little more exciting. You drive by and you can see kind of how it's gonna look long term with the walls going up. We did a walkthrough internal last week. There were some issues looking at floor finishes and the burnished block looks good inside the building. You kind of see the layout for the courtrooms and the boardroom. The offices still need to be framed in, but definitely it's moving along. All the concrete, the flat work inside the new addition should be done probably this week. There's some blacktop on Kansas and potentially the sheriff's parking lot that's still hopeful to get done this week, because after this week, it's looking pretty bleak for blacktop work. But the update today was still the turnover date is set for March 10th. And the addition will be done. Then they'll start remodeling the old courtroom. Building, if it's not enclosed today, it should be pretty close. And the only, I guess, kind of hiccup right now is the roofing contractor that was going to do the shingle part of the roof backed out. And so they're good. They have it weatherproofed, but right now they're identifying another roofing company to come in and do the shingle work. So if you want to look at the pictures, they're in your agenda from just a budget update standpoint. So we just signed off on a little over $3 million of payments have been made. The 8.6 million project, so there's still about 5.5 left to go. That's just our contract with Myron. We still have the other amounts that get us up to over 10 million, include the architect's fees and the IT or AV and the furniture. Those are all ordered and in process as well. So those are looking good. And then our contingency fund started at 395,000. Prior to today, we were at about 229,000 of that left. There are a few change orders in process that we heard about today, so we're probably looking at about half of our contingency fund being used and half remaining. Trying to think of anything else. We already mentioned the parking lot's not going to be available till spring. I think other than that, that's anything else, Ron? From
You did a good job of summing it up. I was gonna make sure that we knew that the parking lot here would not be used.
Right.
Yeah. And turnkey is supposed to be March 10th, even though they might not have all the equipment yet, but they had equipment that we could use until to get equipment, because some of it's back ordered.
Yeah, well, I guess that's March 10th. The key thing, the equipment, there's one, the primary service, electrical service is due to come in that day. It's that back ordered that far. So as long as that comes in, then we'll be able to have electricity. Then the other thing that we know is back ordered beyond that is the fire suppression tank. The waterless fire suppression won't be here till maybe a month after that. Just due to back orders.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Is there any plans of maybe putting a temporary handicap accessible parking space on Main
We
for
talked,
this winter?
we're gonna monitor, we talked to the city.
Okay.
And we can't just put one out there because putting one out there doesn't meet the actual handicap requirements. So if we see there's a problem, we're supposed to talk to,
Charlie.
what's that?
Charlie, you-
Oh, John McHugh.
John McHugh. But Tim has talked to him about that.
Any questions, concerns, thoughts? Number 12, 2023 budget update, discussion, possible action.
I put the courthouse fees and payments on every department's agenda this month, just in case there are any questions about fees for the committees that report. Let's see here, just a quick, we didn't make a whole lot of updates, I don't believe, to any committees here. Highway has some fees here, but they're pretty much, as they were. There's no changes there. Nothing really in maintenance. The only thing that probably Derek's not here tonight, so I didn't have a chance to wrap the discussion up. But we are talking about some additional fees out at the airport to do with land, like for court large planes, like a winter fee if we do have to lay down.
Okay.
ice control chemicals, a charge for that to get that approved. They did it last year on kind of an ad hoc basis, but we want to just establish something there.
Okay, so we want that on the agenda next month.
Yeah, I think we should probably come down for next month.
Okay. Budget look okay, Mr. Ross,
Yep, absolutely.
Mr. Peters?
Looks fine.
Okay.
Love it.
Number 13, future agenda items. We'll have the ordinance on and we'll have these potential fees for the airport. And we'll always have stuff for the courtroom remodel also.
And I didn't have it on here, but everybody wants, I did circulate a plan for adjusting some offices in this end of the building. I can give you an update on that next month as well.
Yep, put that on the next month. Any other correspondence reports? Hearing none. Thank you, folks. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.